changes their density.
Another comment I'd like to make on this chart is you can see the data points for July and August, they have their air conditioner on.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see, you know, in this data, you know, many data points, you can see that there's definitely, you know, it's only about a, you know, about a half mile.
Because it requires more power to drive the compressor, that's why it went down there. That's why as the temperature went up to a certain point, it started going up. Once you had the demand of the AC, it went down a little bit. But it was related better to the temperature. As the temperature goes up, you get better mileage.
Right.
This chart demonstrates something that's very important that I want to emphasize because I do a lot of mileage testing. It's extremely important when you're doing back-to-back testing with hydrogen on versus hydrogen off that you keep the environmental conditions as consistent as possible. I mean, if you're doing tests with your windows up, you keep your windows up. You try to do the test at the same time of day, at the same temperature, same route, same air pressure, all these things, all these factors, same wind speed, you know, general wind speed. Don't try to run two tests, one on a rainy day, one on a sunny day. All those things do affect your gas mileage and can skew your data points. You have to try to do the test as lab accurate as possible. If you could do it inside in a controlled environment, that would be the ideal condition. There's so many different factors in the automobile that affect gas mileage. Even when you're boosting a vehicle, you can show a decrease in mileage because it was on a different conditions of a different day, or you did one test during the day and one at night. Those can affect your numbers drastically.
What I'd like to
especially with like you said, the atmospheric pressure.
Yeah, it makes a big difference.
Just from when we're trying to do the measurement of the gas
Your chart shows your chart is showing that how atmospheric, different environmental conditions can change your gas mileage.
What I'd like to see for conclusive, is probably as close as we can get with, with basic testing without having that full-scale lab, is I'd like to see, this vehicle I'm working on run for a year. And have
compare the 2 years.
And look at this, this 10 years worth of data and say, okay, well, in May, we were getting this as an average. And I'd like to see, the range of this temperature between winter and summer is, about 2 or 3 miles per gallon. We need to have more than that of improvement. So if we're getting just 2 miles per gallon, and the other thing about this car is if you look at highway miles you can get, up to 26 on this car. And so to have a really solid evidence that we're getting a gas mileage improvement, I'd like to see above the 26, above the highest that the car's ever gotten. And, if you're averaging, it's really hard to predict the traffic conditions.
Do you know what that car was supposed to be? I mean, what it's rated at?
It's pretty much exactly. Yeah, highway's 24 to 20.
Okay, so
it's getting a little better, but
anything over what the high mileage is from the manufacturer is a little easier to prove than if you say, well, the best I ever got when it was 20. Well, what's it rated at? It's rated at 26. I got 26 with HHO. So if you're getting 30, then like you said, you're being able to show that it's more than what the manufacturer says it should be.
Because one of the problems I have with a lot of the data that's posted, and I think everybody up here does a pretty good job, but a lot of the data, it's like, oh man, I got 100% improvement or 75% improvement. And I'm not saying I don't believe those people, but we need to have good statistical type data where it's, you have many iterations and make sure you have a solid baseline. And, I think sometimes what some people do is they take the worst gas mileage they ever got, and then they compare it. Then they go and do their test with hydroxy and they drive on the highway and they're paying attention to how they're driving, and so they change their driving habits. And so it really skews it. So to have we need to have really good data collection and really, really careful, if anything, we need to be skeptical of all the results that we're getting. If you're skeptical and you're still getting results, then that, it's a lot better.
Did that wear time bring on your car to start burning rich, or is it still burning lean and gas? HHO doesn't work for the winter.
Well, this data is not, it's not HHO data.
Oh,
This is the data that the car has gotten since the owner has owned it. They have a little booklet and they write it down.
I see.
This data does not include any boosted data. It's just, this is the kind of data we need for baselines. You know, because that's the most important thing. You can go drive your vehicle and get a gas mileage once you put the hydrogen on, but it tells you really nothing unless you know what you were getting before. Yes.
Okay, each of these data points, are they the average for
They're the average,
number
so,
of years, and where do you get your temperature data from?
so each one of the blue data points, so the gas mileage data points, what I did is the owner of the vehicle writes down the gas mileage for, since from 98 to 2008. And so I took for each year, for January,
You add them up and
I
then-
average each month up and then average. So I average each month for each year. So like for January 1998, I averaged all those numbers. And then, so then I got an average number for January 98,
And nine,
99, and so on. And then I took all those numbers and averaged them again. And so every time you do an average like that, you get rid of all the outliers, they call it. So,
Insert
you got a mean, you got a mean.
mhm. And that's the best way, is get a lot of data and average it. And that's the,
What about the temperature data? Did you just go?
now the temperature data, I basically, this vehicle was in Moscow, Idaho. And so I just basically looked up on the internet, average temperature data, sent for,
Which year?
there was probably 100 years of data,
One of the things that you're bringing up, Jake, is one of the things that we're starting to look into as well is, like you said, quantifying the data collection. There are some avenues that we're looking at and looking into is telemetrics. And a lot more people are getting involved with GPSs for their vehicles and things like that. Is a live service database where all of these points of interest, your altitude, your forward moving speed, your temperature, they're already set up for the trucking companies that a lot of us have dealings with already.
sure.
So that almost any vehicle that goes on, and when they add or introduce a hydroxy gas into a vehicle, you can see the raw real-time data. But it's just a matter of getting enough people that can get involved in, like, say, opening up a lease option so that they want to quantify, they really want to know what their vehicle is actually capable of doing. So if they own a Toyota Camry or whatever it is their specific vehicle, specific type of vehicle, some vehicles may work well with it, and some may not work at all. And it gives them a place online where they can actually look at the data and say, okay, well, this is the car I would like to buy, but I would also like to have, Zero's PWM on there, his booster on there, his plasma exhaust, the Peltier cell out there on the exhaust, finding the real information to get the most bang for their buck out of this particular choice of vehicle that they want. So that's where we're looking to try and get more information through that telemetrics. And like I said, everybody's starting to get into their own personal GPS. And that is incorporated into a lot of these commercial systems that send data back for like UPS or FedEx, so you track your load.
Right.
And so everybody's trying to get towards that age, but you're bringing up valid points. It's like averages are fine, but when you know what the real-time forward and the real-time down is, that you'll be able to actually say, this actually works, or this does not work.
Sure.
And then we're all affirmed by it by saying, well, consumer reports will not publish pro data for this. It's not to their advantage.
Right.
They'd rather have somebody with a big fuel tank and just fill it up and keep filling it up.